Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum for global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, CEOs about how organizations can stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, DeanDeBiase. I want to thank all of you for joining us from around the globe. So I'd like to welcome a good friend, Wizz, who is the CEO of the retail strategy group, Wizz & Co. And Wizz, are you there today?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Great to be here.
Sorry about that. It's good to see you. I would like to kind of kick things off and just welcome everybody. Those of you that were in the U.S. probably weren't affected by the Zoom time zone mix-up, but we thought we'd get started with a little bit of a review about what's going on. Our format here with Revive is to use some data about what's going on in the market and then kind of jump into a Q&A. So for those of you that can't see slides, we apologize if you're on your phone just listening. We're just glad that you joined us. So obviously retail is having some issues, and we thought we'd get into that today with retailers, shutting their doors, limiting hours, and withdrawing their guidance from the public markets without a lot of information about how they're going to reset and when they're going to reset. Some of the early signs with our partner over at Kantar is showing the obvious, shopping and transactions being down in retail and trending up in e-commerce. We're going to continue to report on this on a weekly basis as we move forward here. So you're seeing that happen. More interestingly, when you look at the data across the G7 countries, and another Kantar survey, the barometer study, focuses in on their purchase intent. What's been happening now? Has the coronavirus actually made their purchasing decisions more difficult? Have they gone down? Of course they have, but more importantly, the intent and where they're going next. You're seeing almost up to 70% expecting that to be impacted, and that's pretty consistent across a lot of the major economic powers. Another interesting thing before we get to Wiz to look at is what's going on in China and what we can learn from that. So while, essentially we're well over 1.5 million cases of COVID-19 around the globe. In the US alone, we've had, I think according to NBC News, our most deadliest days was between Tuesday and Wednesday this week, about 2,000 deaths. At the same time, if you look at what's going on in Wuhan, the original epicenter, after their 11-week lockdown, things are beginning to open up and cut loose. And we're seeing what happened in the early stages where some sectors were hit very hard, such as beauty and makeup and health and different type of health products. There were others that were not impacted as much. And you're seeing that on your screen about how some of these sectors not only held their ground, and even though they moved to e-commerce, that some of them actually increased. And some of that was obviously stocking up in certain products, but others were people, moving from more beauty care products to more skincare and being concerned about things. So now what we're seeing with the what people are calling the China revenge shopping is a huge potential for rebound, projecting some of the early signs we're seeing there from some of the shopping there. So you're seeing categories like skincare, for instance, and health and beauty, and the lipstick effect that Wizz will talk about in a minute here is coming on very strong. So you can't replicate China for what's going on in the rest of the world. And as the wave kind of goes through, different countries will have different responses to this. But we're going to have a separate Reboot Chronicles on this coming up in the next week or two that will just focus in on the data with China and what we can do and what we can learn from it. And then the last thing we wanted to show you is a little bit of the data that we're getting from the Revive Health and Beauty Index. And this is basically, we are tracking about 100,000 consumers around the globe, and what we're seeing from their behavior, both on their mostly on their personal devices, and what's actually changing there. And the numbers are way up. So about over 300% are taking more selfies and trusting personalized skincare analysis from their phone. The second category is their openness has increased to product recommendations based on the skin scan that they get from their phone. What's happening? They're visiting more product pages. They're more interested in becoming more digitally savvy and aware. And then lastly, they're more interested in actually purchasing those products. So they don't just click on there and look at it and go and look at some engaging content, which Wizz will talk about, but they're also adding these products to their shopping cart more than they used to during this pandemic, during the lockdown when they can't go out shopping. We'll continue to give you lots of data from the Revive Index, but these are just for those of you that like drill down data. Some of you data people on the phone. This is some of the real back information to that high level data about what consumers are concerned about. We kind of call this the coronavirus concern. I mean, obviously people are, have a lot of worry on their face, but that's not really why these are trending. People are more interested in their health and more than they are in their beauty. And then we'll see that switch as we go to, starting opening up country by country, economy by economy. So look for us to continue to keep you updated both through these webinars as well as through the Revive Index Thought Leadership platform. So that's a little bit of an update on the data. That's the format we usually like to start out with, give you some real concrete things to look at, and then kind of get into discussing it. So Wizz, it's probably more than we wanted to cover today, but let's get your thoughts at this point.
Great, thank you. There's a couple of themes I'm going to talk about is what are customers thinking about right now, why will they purchase, and how brands and retailers can prepare for the future. So I think the first thing to look at is really what the customer mindset is. So Dean, could you just pop to the next slide, please? Thank you. So consumer behaviour has obviously shifted, and kind of we can really drill down into, I suppose, separate mindsets about how people are purchasing. There's obviously a huge requirement of essentials at the moment. So people have this mindset of what do I need right now, and what do I need for, I suppose, the short term coming months. And we've certainly seen this through grocery, this huge influx of purchasing and running out of toilet roll in the UK. But this is something that people are continuing to buy and obviously won't stop. There's also this kind of new mindset around what do I want right now? How can I make myself feel better? How can I look after myself? So obviously health concerns, but this also feeds into beauty as well. There's the obvious hand care and hand wash and sanitizer, but also it's moving into, I suppose, the whole wellness space as well, which has been a big, I suppose, shift and trend within the beauty industry, and I think the whole lifestyle industry. And this is becoming more heightened now as well, because I think if people were thinking about purchasing a dress to go out at the weekend, they're now thinking about, okay, what rituals can I do at home to look after myself? So then people are really starting to think in this mindset. And then the third one is those purchases that they may have made a couple of months ago, but actually now they're, I suppose, pausing on some of those things. So some of the more luxury items, fashion, for example. So people are thinking about what can I buy later? And actually there's two mindsets here. I think one will be people understanding their own financial situations, because lots of people are in different scenarios. So people will still be researching and looking for products, but they'll be potentially making shopping lists and wish lists, and doing their research and thinking about, if I have the money, when this finishes, not sure how long that will be, that's something I might be buying in the future. So following on from those purchase intentions, conscious consumerism has never felt so relevant. Again, this is a trend, a shift in consumer behaviour that's been happening, I think, across all product categories and retail. But actually, it's never felt more relevant than it has right now. And whether that's sustainability, which again is being heightened where we're seeing so much less pollution from less travel, but that's thinking through to the brands that are thinking more sustainably. Also ethical brands with social enterprise companies, and also what are brands' values and retailers' values, and how do they align to their customers' values as well. People want to be shopping with brands or retailers that have a purpose, and as we've seen this shift happening over the last few years, it feels really heightened at the moment. So I believe that customers are really thinking about who to purchase from, which brands they want to support, and also why should they shop with you. So whether you're a brand that already has some of these values or these themes, or you've been thinking about how to incorporate them more into your business, I think now is a huge opportunity, I suppose, to reset, refocus, and lead with some of these, if you have I suppose, some of these true qualities about your brand.
Hey, Wiz, this one actually surprised me. Why, with all the chaos and fear and just this unprecedented historical event that the globe's going through at the same time, why would
Mm.
consumers be thinking about this now? It seems to me they're thinking more about survival and getting things, and this is very different from what I haven't seen this reported anywhere.
I think this is interesting. People have a lot more time to think at the moment as well, and they are concerned about their spending. So, although they are thinking about stockpiling, which is what we're reading about, people are also thinking about what else they might want to purchase as well. So that purchase behaviour or desire hasn't gone away, and people are behaving in different ways.
I think we're seeing that in some of the Revive data too. This is just a different way to kind of paginate it, I guess. But we're seeing consumers spending more time with their own devices and doing more analysis and getting more content and listening more. And let's jump into that a little bit with some of the other things that you're seeing. If I can jump ahead on this slide here, just to kick it off at the top, it says, some brands and retailers, for those of you that can't see these, are experiencing unprecedented sales spikes. So for instance, if you take an Ulta Beauty, the reason some of these retailers are doing the way that they're doing, even in dark times when the doors are closed, is they invested in lots of cool things, not just supply chain, but virtual reality, try-on, augmented reality, different technologies, different partners. They built up a loyal base. They also had good omni-channel behavior going both in-store as well as to online. So their ability to attract, retain, and engage consumers online during the pandemic has been, I think, somewhat unprecedented. So what can some of the other brands and retailers with us today can learn from this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's lots of things to be thinking about at the moment, and customers are reaching to digital, and more brands are having to fast track that process of becoming digital first. And yeah, you're completely right, Dean. It's the ones that have invested in that are definitely feeling the benefit of that now. But I think as customers that may not have shopped online before, they are probably now realizing that actually it can be quite easy. So some of those people will be converting to do that in the longer term as well now. So I think it's definitely an opportunity to look at how you can be more digital first as a strategy. Obviously, there's lots of beauty brands that have started to deploy diagnostic and try-on tools for purchases. They can happen in store and online as well. So there's a huge opportunity there for people to layer on existing applications or plugins.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit more. That how can some of the in-store retailers who are now pushing more e-commerce do a better job at the digital journey? So let's say they do get someone to come to their site, their marketing department has done a good job there. Now what?
Yeah. I think it's about providing as much content on the site as possible, and actually a lot more content on product pages. I think that's something that's very undervalued in certainly in the beauty category. Is customers get to the website, which is fantastic, and people spend a lot of time and energy getting people there, and money, of course. But actually, people then really want to be inquiring and finding out as much about the product detail as possible. So as much information you can populate on content pages, of content on product pages. So everything from full descriptions from the brands, but also why a retailer would recommend those products, the ingredients, a full list of what they mean, and also lots of different images, how-to videos, reviews. So really making the product pages as rich as possible. So it really helps that purchase decision.
In the DIY category, I'm envisioning people trying to do things to themselves that normally they would get done in a salon. What do you think that's going to create a longer term trend to more self-service type of products in health and
Yeah,
beauty?
potentially. I think in skincare it's been happening for a long time as well, and that's been happening through social media. Or I suppose you have a hashtag Masking Mondays or Sunday self-care, or lots of kind of rituals. So I think that's definitely been happening for a while. And again, this will just be heightened. I suppose it's the people that may have been having facials before are now trying to do things at home, but also I think there's now more content out there that if people have the time to be staying in on a Saturday night, maybe they're going to look, okay, how can I create my own at-home experience?
Yeah, I could use a mask Monday. I'm not sure how that works, but I definitely, um, everybody kind of needs a break. Seems like everyone is stressed out, working harder, and
Yeah.
but we are seeing them spending more time engaging on the platforms, whether
Mhm.
they're just looking at more content, they're getting more advice. So you're right. I think they have more time. They're being a little bit more thoughtful. Talk about the one of the bullet points you had talked about was creating more brand advocates. That's kind
Mhm.
of a normal thing that the big brands focus on, but a lot of the indie brands do a much
Mm.
better job at that. What can we learn there? So, for instance, it doesn't have to happen on your site. It can happen on Pinterest and TikTok and many other platforms.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the, I suppose I feel, most underrated, I think, sources of new clients or revenue. But actually, your most loyal customers are your most valuable, because not only will they spend a lot of money with you, I suppose, which is, I suppose, your key objective, but actually, if you can get them recommending your product, your brand, your virtual experience to their friends and talking about you behind your back without you paying them, it's free marketing, it's free PR. I mean, it's very hard to track in some cases. But actually, that's what I mean by a brand advocate. I think it's more than brand loyalty. It's more than, I suppose, having customers on your database. I feel like that's the top tier of your customers, really, your VIPs. So how do you communicate with them, and how do you, I suppose, reward them as well, and provide them with some great experiences that they can then go and tell their friends and family about?
I think retailers are having a hard time figuring that out in the States right now.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are I'm looking at the chat bar here, and many of you in the States can't seem to get Walmart or Amazon to deliver the slots. So the slots are always taken up. So that's an interesting thing that some of these brands could solve, is how do I, take care of my most loyal customers and
Yeah.
put them to the top of the queue, that had kind of like the airline industry does. They haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, Ocado's done that very well. I'm a Smart Pass customer, so they've prioritized me where people can load onto the website. I now get fast track access because I've had membership with them for multiple years. So they are prioritizing those best customers. And I suppose it's like any kind of loyalty program. It actually, if you have that data, you can start to extract that.
I, yeah, that's good. I noticed you've been advising some of the brands to develop wish lists and kind of like
Mm.
pay it forward. While you have so much time, come up with all these things that you want, or that you want to make lists for your friends. So do you have a list of stuff for me, or that you're developing, or how does it work? Is it like for birthdays and stuff? What were you referring
Yeah, I
to?
think it's for personal purchase, for a start. I think lots of brands and retailers have wish lists already, but if you don't, it's definitely something to be looking into. There's also opportunities. I think as people are becoming more conscious about spending, I'm personally thinking, and probably because I'm in the industry, I'm thinking I'm trying not to spend too much, but also I'm thinking about the people at risk in a warehouse. I don't want to really order anything unnecessary at the moment. But actually, if I could reserve something and then I could ship that later, once things are a bit safer, then that's definite opportunity. It also gives a really good insight to brands and retailers of what people are thinking about purchasing. Because I suppose one of the challenges right now is having enough stock now, or too much stock, and also then are you stock ready for when there's a potential sales surge after this. I also think gift cards is interesting. People are still having birthdays; they haven't changed, and they're stuck at home. So actually, could you create gift emails so somebody could purchase something for someone that then gets shipped at a later date? I think there's lots of kind of creative ideas of how you could, kind of capture some of these things.
I don't see, at least in the States, I haven't seen a lot of marketing campaigns revolving around that.
Mm.
Today's my son's birthday, so I sent him probably more important things, like things from Amazon Fresh. So he's getting, I
Yeah,
probably shouldn't say what he's getting, but it's let's just say it's things they can have fun with, eating and
yeah,
drinking, and some staples from Walgreens that he needed as well. Because
yeah.
so it's an old behavior. But are you seeing much? What can some of these indie brands do now? Most of the big brands have figured out their Pinterest strategy and TikTok and Facebook and others. Anything they can do really quickly here in the next few weeks?
I think the quickest thing is for people to communicate with their customers and ask them what they want. I think that I've spoken to quite a few people who are worried about communicating the wrong thing, so not sure what to do. But actually, social media and communication is a two-way thing. It doesn't have to be one way. So actually, there's lots of polls, quizzes, kind of DM us separately, and you can start asking your customers what content they want to hear, what events they want, what do they want to be educated on. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And yeah, put yourself out there and find out what customers want, because that would help you tailor your content strategy.
Speaking of Q&A, we have one here from Nadine saying, thank you for the content you shared. Could you just give us some precisions about the sources? So the skincare information that we provided was from the Revive Health and Beauty Index, and we'll be posting a lot of that as well as making it available to the press real soon. So these are some of the things we can do now. Let's talk about what is next. When potentially consumers start going back to the stores. We're seeing that in China. Is that a comp for every country? No, but we will continue to track how, as the wave goes around the world, when consumers start returning to the stores. Many stores are still going there, so groceries and things like Walgreens and CVS and all the other ones that are still open as essential. We'll track that and bring that information to you. So the digital lockdown has been an interesting thing. We think there's going to be some permanent shifts in consumer behavior. One example that Wizz and I did a couple of interviews yesterday that we talked about is baby boomers have essentially, at least the laggard segment of the baby boomers that weren't very digital, they didn't buy a lot online, they were used to kind of running to the shops or running to the stores. They are now more digitally savvy, which is a relative term. But so they might not go to the shops as much. They might not go to the stores as much. And there's going to be a lot of people concerned about, should I be there? Is it too crowded? I don't want to touch everything. So we're seeing some these newly digitized consumers being a little bit more open and maybe preferring omni-channel shopping. So thoughts on that, Wiz?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, what people say, it's 21 days to make a habit. And I think people will then have created some of these habits about shopping online. So some of those behaviours will certainly continue. And also, yeah, I think people will be very aware of I suppose, hygiene as they're moving forward. And I think the beauty industry was already bubbling away about hygiene a bit, whether that's, I suppose, samples and testers, or that's, I suppose, the resale market, which is, I suppose, a whole nother conversation. But I think we've all been talked at about hygiene and how things spread, and have a lot more knowledge about that. So I suppose that will be ingrained in this. So people will be looking about how that they can try on products. So digital solutions, or this kind of using your own device, as you said, will be key. I'm certainly thinking about it. Everyone's introduced kind of touch screens whether it's McDonald's and you order your food through that, but actually how many people have touched that screen? So yeah, there's definitely going to be some new behavior and changes.
Yeah, we'll be publishing some data about that. At Revive, we kind of power all the large beauty brands, the indies, as well as the retailers, and we are device agnostic, whatever device they want to use in store. But we are seeing, as consumers return to stores, this concern that says, I'm concerned about the crowdedness of the store. I'm concerned about, the hygiene, but touching devices. So we think there's going to be a huge trend of what is on the slide here called UYOD, use your own device. And in most countries, people are more used to using their phone. They're more comfortable with it. So in health and beauty, it's a great opportunity because people can engage and do more things on it. And in other stores, they'll continue to use devices. But even if you go to sign something now, most of the stores are saying you don't have to sign it anymore because I don't think that's going to go away. It's not just because of pandemic. I think there's been a trend to use your own device. It's also a data privacy and security issue as well. So though we're looking at it through a beauty health lens, scanning your face and getting product recommendations, it will touch all aspects of retail. So if you look at something like an Amazon store where it's all through the phone, it's pretty touchless. You still have to pick up the products, of course, but we think in-store behavior is going to change. And what there seems to be a disconnect right now with about, consumers are just trying to get through, the 5 o'clock news. What am I going to hear today? Whereas retailers, they need to be planning 5 months out. What are we going to do to recover from this? And how do we kind of get that disconnect as leaders on the phone from retailers and brands? What can they do to kind of bridge that?
I think it's about having, I suppose, the two strategies. What is the short term, and what can we be doing now? But how are we set up for success when we start to see people, I suppose, going out and shops reopening as well? And I think that, I suppose, what brands and retailers are putting out there digitally is still really important, because, I mean, I observe people shopping, and obviously have done as a bit of a retail geek, but people are still looking at products and then Googling things on their phone, and they have been doing that for quite a few years now. So actually having all of that content online is only going to be even more valuable for when people go back into shops. So I think this isn't, I suppose, a of the moment thing. This is a shift and a future strategy as well.
Right. Related to that, we're seeing a lot of consumers, whatever it is, having more time, becoming more digital, spending more time on sites. They're switching brands too. So there is a need to spend less money. So they might be buying cheaper cosmetics and beauty and health and even food brands. So do you think there's a shift with loyalty and affinity? And I view this as a great opportunity for new brands that are trying to jump into the market. There's a trend that says consumers are trying to buy only what they're, comfortable with. But there's another trend that's saying, I'm trying different things that I've never even seen before. When I go back to the store, I might start demanding these brands and skipping out on the big ones that I used to buy. Do you see that as a trend, or just occurring event?
And I think there's lots of different, I suppose, consumer bases here, and lots of people are in different scenarios. So you may have somebody who's watching what they spend, so they're going to replenish their skin cream, for example, with a lower price point product. So it's important for these brands to kind of go back to basics and educate people about what their brand is about and what value that creates, if it's a lower price point product. But then also you'll have people that potentially had a facial every month, and then they're not spending that money. So then they are spending that time to research into different products and different brands. And people now have the time to be considering, and I suppose looking at those more expensive purchases as well, and really trying to understand, I suppose, which of those purchases they'll make.
Right. Got one question on the chat bar. Some people are using the chat, some are using Q&A. And it's from John. And it's basically saying he's seeing retailers offering 20% off $100 gift cards. What can retailers do to get consumers to come back to the store? Because in many countries, we think that could be a very prolonged behavioral pattern that takes too long to get going.
I think it will be about the retailers and the stores really communicating about what they're doing to, I suppose, with hygiene standards, with distancing. I think people, once they start going out, will still be concerned about that. So I think what we're seeing in the press in the UK is, I suppose, the guidelines for grocery and the guidelines for warehouses and what people are adhering to. I suppose it's how people can communicate and, I suppose, create some sense of space and hygiene within their stores, and almost thinking of that as a communication strategy as well to encourage people to come back in.
Yeah, and free gift cards doesn't hurt either, maybe.
No, I mean, that's a cash flow, isn't it? I think it's a challenging time for people. So if it helps the brands and retailers cash flow.
Yeah, these are challenging times. And, at Revive and the Reboot Chronicles, we really appreciate everyone's time. That's why we keep these to a half hour. We like to keep them short and sweet. There'll be regular updates. We have a lot of guest hosts coming up, both authors, CEOs, different industry gurus that will be continuing to come on. We'll keep these short, sweet. We will publish them probably both in writing as well as in the entire podcast as well. So those of you that couldn't make it, we'll see you there as well. Wizz, any parting comments? We would like to end things kind of on a hopeful note. We know we will get out of this. But for the brands and retailers, I see both large retailer brands up here as well as indies, as well as some of the beauty brands are online with us. Yeah, it certainly is a challenging time. But I think, look at China. I think I've been
watching that quite avidly, and people are coming out the other side of this, and this revenge spending. I know you're going to talk about that in future episodes, but I think it's certainly a time to refocus and connect stronger bonds with your customers.
Yeah, and also as the last bullet point says, we will publish the slides. Be ready with your agile assets. Your agile assets are your people and many other things. Be really nimble on the capabilities, because no matter what the experts tell you, it's going to be live and situational in the field, depending on where you are, what culture, what country. No matter what anyone tells you, we're all going to learn this together. And I think sharing best practices is going to continue to be something that's very tactical, not just getting on webinars and stuff, but actually trying these things and sharing them across at least maybe non-competitive sectors. So with that, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Reboot Chronicles. And Wizz, thanks for joining us today.
Great, thanks for having me.
Right, cheers.
Bye.